How many good cops you ever see stop a bad cop from being a bad cop?
They closed that window.
Yes.
They created the scenario where they only had a few seconds to react.
We have a problem that needs to be addressed.
Come on, Landon. Please. Help me help you. That's all I'm asking for. Come on, brother. Just drop the knife. Get your hand out of your pocket. If that's a gun, what you got in there, don't worry about it. We'll figure it out. We'll fix it. I'm not too worried about that right now. I'm worried about you. I'm worried about you, Landon. Come on, brother. Just drop it. Come on.
10-7.
I know you can do it.
I
know you want to do the right thing here. And this is your chance. Landon. Come on, brother. Landon, please, brother. Don't do it. Don't do it. No. No, Landon. Please, Landon. Please. No. Landon. Cease fire! Please, Landon. Please. No.
All right, so y'all saw that, right? Let me see. I think it was a few people who wanted to chime in on these. Joey.
Who's that?
I don't know. What's up, Sarge?
Hey, all right, Joe. How are you?
Good. You saw this video, right?
Yeah, I saw it. I saw it just now, but I also saw a different one where they showed it kind of from a side angle.
Okay.
And there was like, I don't know, anywhere from 12 to 16 cops, I think, I want to say. Is that the guy that's kind of on the highway?
Yeah.
And they said he had a box cutter.
Right. He had a box cutter.
But then when he came up, was it a gun or not?
No, it was no gun.
It was definitely a box.
Yeah, but his motion was like he had a gun.
Oh, I see. Okay. I could tell.
It was definitely suicide by cop. He had everything. I mean, you got a box cutter and you point it like it's a gun.
Yeah.
Well, give your assessment on it. What do you think?
See, when I saw the video, it looked like he came up with a gun. Either way, even with that said, let's take it a step further. Let's say it was a gun. Where the hell was the less lethal? Why do you got 16 cops with their guns out? Where's the cop with the 40? Where's the L ambush? And the guy that takes the side of him maybe could hit him with a less lethal. There was none of that. Where is the guy with the 40 sponge round? And why are all these cops standing in the middle of without any cover, without anything in between them and the suspect with the weapon? Why are they just standing in front of him? All you're doing is baiting this guy. Where was I understand he was trying to de-escalate. You know, that cop was doing an okay job with the verbal de-escalation. However, let's get some space. We got the time. Let's get some space between us. Let's put some cover in between us, and let's continue with this de-escalation. Because it looked like to me, especially with the video I saw, that all these cops had their guns out and they just couldn't wait to, let loose, man. I hate to say.
Yeah. The problem that I have, right, we start talking about deadly force, right? And you're on another side of the United States. So certain force, when to use taser, when not to, when to use mace, when to go hands-on, that might vary from department to department. But deadly force is pretty universal. When an officer pulls a trigger in my neck of the woods to yours, it's pretty universal. It's the same. It's either to save a life, right?
Yep.
To save your life or the life of someone else.
Right.
And there are no other options. People gotta realize, they gotta understand deadly force. Because you're taking a life, right, during deadly force, the police department, the training is, before you do that, right, you need to try to find other options if the time allows you to. Find other options, because realistically, the training is to protect life. So
Yeah.
we're not quick to take it, but we see
Yeah.
time and time again, it doesn't look like that.
Right.
So the problem that I have with this is, where's the why was it so quick to get up on him like that and shoot? There was nobody else around, so you had time. You had time to put the vehicles, the barriers between you and the subject,
Right.
So where
Right.
there was nobody else around, so you had time to talk. You had time to try to de-escalate. You had time to get the crisis intervention team there. It seems like they rushed the use of deadly force because they put themselves in a situation where if he had something, it was too close to retreat. You can't force deadly force.
Yes.
You can't do that. And that's the problem I have with that. You roll up on the scene, he's on a highway, you got traffic blocked, right? And all the officers are walking close to him. He's not,
Right.
there was no civilians around the way you had to hurry up and eliminate a threat.
Right.
There was
Right.
no need to hurry up and eliminate a threat. Stand back, put the cars in between, and
Right.
allow more time. Training says try to find other options. Try to find other options. It seems like they didn't even try to find any other options. And that's the problem I see when we start talking about deadly force. You know, you got officers, people will say, well, they didn't know if he had a gun, they didn't know if he had a knife, but you didn't try to find other options. You just rushed in. Now, officers are trained to hurry up and eliminate a threat, to rush in when you have people's lives in the imminent danger of being lost right then and there.
Right.
There was no need to do that. You didn't have to rush in and kill a threat because there was no threat that was there.
Right.
Right? Hey, detective, what's going on?
Hey, what's up, Joe?
Pretty good. I got Sarge here. He pretty much said the guys rushed it. I'm saying the guys rushed it. With your experience, what do you say?
Hey, what's up, Sarge?
What's happening, man?
What's up? When I look at that, I didn't see any. There was no need to rush in. I didn't see when I look at these situations, I try and put myself in. I'm sitting in the seat, and I want the viewers, everybody who's watching and listening to understand. If you're in the same situation, how are you going to deal with this, right? And I'm standing there. I'm a police officer. I didn't feel my life was in danger at that time. I really didn't.
Right.
I felt like time was on my side.
Yes.
And yes. Right. And like, all right, so you get this call. You're gonna radio to other units. You're gonna have the special units respond, the SEUs, the units that have the special equipment to handle these type of situations. But I did not feel at that particular time I had to discharge my weapon in the life at that particular time. Time was on our side, and that's a problem. That is a problem.
Yeah, and like I said before, a lot of people don't know police training. So we're here to enlighten them, to educate them. Deadly, you have certain departments that it would vary on certain forces. When to use the taser, when to use the OC spray, when to go hands-on. But deadly force is pretty universal throughout the whole United States. There's your life or life of someone else is about to be taken. So there's no other options but to use deadly force. You don't see any of that. That doesn't change across the United States. Deadly force, when to shoot, when to pull that trigger, that's pretty standard.
Yep.
So when I look at this incident, I go, where a lot of people don't mention this. Where is trying to find other options at? Now, to the audience, don't get me wrong, there is times where you don't have other options because you have to respond quick to eliminate a threat because somebody's life is at risk. But when you see an incident like this, a guy standing on the highway, traffic is backed up. All you see is officers approaching. Everybody's approaching. What is the rush? Step back. I mean, me personally, I look at that. I'd have put my car in between me. They try to find barriers for cover. Put my car in between me and the subject. If time allows you to do that, this is what the training tells you to do.
Absolutely.
Find other options.
Right.
The situation, they could have found options, but they just didn't. I don't understand that. Go ahead, Sarge.
These guys look like, they were in a hurry, okay? If you got two cops responding to this type of situation, I could see both officers having the guns out and still trying to de-escalate and slow things down. But you had literally like 12 to 16 cops there, every one of them with a gun out. Let's get some less lethal on this guy. Let's back up. Let's get a barrier in between us. Let's continue with the verbal de-escalation, because our primary job here is to preserve life, right? I mean, that's what we signed up for. But it's like, sometimes I think these guys got extra fear in them than me and you, or they got a lot less experience than we've had. And that's when, or maybe even, maybe some guys are trigger happy. I have met those guys as well. So that's where the problem comes in. Okay, you got to have a lot of time under your belt to learn to control your fear, right?
Right.
If that's what the issue is. But that's why you got all these cops around. Somebody take control here and let's develop a plan. Let's, you got guns on this guy. Let's tell these other cops, grab your cars. Let's put a barrier here. Let's continue to talk to them. Let's talk them down. Somebody get less lethal. All right, you get a 40. You get the sponge round. You get the beanbag round. All right, it didn't seem like anybody was doing that.
Nah.
You know, and Jay, to Sarge's point, right? That I think that's an interesting point where we have to start in law enforcement as a whole to start preparing for situations that can happen in a snap. So you respond to a call, and all of a sudden you have somebody who has mental health issues. And how do we handle this when he's aggressive on the spot? So I'm thinking of the same thing. And Sarge mentioned how we should have those excess equipment inside of the vehicles. You know, you have certain things in your car, flares, you have this, that, and the other. We need to have other equipment in the vehicle. So if something happens at the drop of a dime, we can handle that right on the spot.
Yes.
No, we should have to wait for special units to come in. Because as a police officer, right, you are the first responder. You are the initial point of contact. And you can come in contact with someone who just doesn't have it at that time. And you have to be readily prepared to handle the situation. So, no, this is something that should be talked about on the forefront.
Shane, what's up, bro?
Hey, what's up, guys?
Good.
All right, what's up, crew?
How are you? Good to see you.
All right.
Good to see you too, man.
Thank you.
Did you see the incident?
Which one? Which?
The guy on the highway. The guy on the highway.
Oh,
the box cutter and the officers. Sarge, you met Sarge before. You talked.
yes.
Before.
Oh yeah.
He's active. He's an active guy.
Mm-hmm.
And pretty much we was just letting the audience know about deadly force, right? When we see these incidents, deadly force, there is times when officers has to rush in to use deadly force, because regardless of what department you in, when it comes to deadly force, it's pretty universal to save your life or the life of someone else.
Correct.
Right? Now, and don't forget, in that deadly force, it says, try to find other options. Try to find other options before you pull that trigger, because it's supposed to be of saving lives. But when we see time and time again things like this, you wonder where's the effort to save the life? So you got this guy, he's in the middle of the highway, traffic is blocked. The officers are like, I didn't see the try to find other options. Like I told Sarge, everybody has multiple years of experience. I said I would have put my vehicle in front of, between me and the actual subject. And you could tell he had some mental problems. Try to talk to him, see if I get a crisis intervention team there. It seemed like they pushed so much to where they didn't have no other choice but to use deadly force, because you hear that officer, oh, he's reaching for a gun, and then he comes up and like he has a firearm in his hand. He did the quick motion, suicide by cop. So I don't see that to find other options. Like we're forgetting to find that other options when time allows. When time allows now.
But guys, there was a lot of time. It's 9. Let's look at the scenario. 9 of them. 9 officers. You have less lethal. You can use a beanbag. You can use a taser. Your guys could surround them. It's 9 on 1, and you carry 17 rounds in your magazine. It's 9 of us on 1. You gonna tell me no one could approach and talk to him? I didn't even see negotiating any skill set there. I just saw him encroaching in, kept encroaching, and before you know it, My man was laying on the ground for a box cutter. Now we know any type of sharp object is dangerous. We know that. But a box cutter, how many slices are you going to get with a little box cutter on with your vest or with 4 or 5? How many? That didn't make any sense, guys.
Yeah. But Shane, they was there 30 minutes. They were there 30 minutes. So
keep
right on this
30 minutes, 40 minutes, 40, whatever it takes to disarm them. Let's keep talking. It's us. It's more of us than it's you. Right. Where's he gonna go? To the forest? Jump in a tree somewhere? Where was he going? We had him cornered. So what do? Talk him down. Let's keep talking. We know he's mentally ill. First off, he has a box cutter. We know that already. Let's continue to talk. Let's continue to negotiate. Let's continue to de-escalate. Traffic was stopped already. No lives were in danger. None.
So hey Shane, let me play devil's advocate a little bit.
Sure.
The video I showed, they showed him, regardless them knowing he had a box cutter, he reached around and then he came around real fast, like the motion, like if he had a gun. That motion, what do you mean to tell me you can't look at that motion and kind of be in fear? Like, I don't know, I might have a box cutter now, but if I'm reaching around and I'm coming up like this, I got something in my hand, you can't see where the officer or any reasonable officer could make a strong argument that he has something in his hand. He took a stance of a firearm stance. Like,
I've been in instances like that.
Yes.
I can talk for myself. I'm from the Bronx, y'all. I grew up fighting. I've seen this time and time again. Stuff, I'm just not fearful. Stuff like that don't scare me. If I see a gun, okay, different story. But I'm not, me and myself, I'm not in fear of my life.
Right.
I'm not.
right.
I know what I'm capable to do. I know how I grew up. I'm not in fear. If you're in fear, then get off the job.
Right.
Get off the job. I've been in scary situations, guys, where a gun was actually pulled. Okay, great. It didn't hit me, but it was actually pulled. Yes. You gotta know this is a job. People are gonna turn around, they're gonna reach, you're gonna do all type of things. Just be ready. It wasn't time to. I wouldn't have blown him down.
Right.
I would have kept talking to him. Yeah. You could reach around.
I agree.
So many things, guys.
Right.
Just me not be fearing for my life. No, sir. I don't know what to say. I wouldn't have been in fear, Joe. I wouldn't have.
Right. I
controlling your fear, man. You know, I've been in scary situations, many scary situations. But it's how you learn to control that fear, and you're confident in your skill set. You know how many pull guns on me? Not mostly fake guns, some real guns. But again, when we talked about this, 9 times out of 10, they're pulling that gun to throw it and then run.
Correct.
Like that, I would have shot a lot of people.
Correct.
But I've been experiencing this for many years, and I learned to deal with that and not lose my cool.
On your training, you relied on your training skill set and your years of experience, and that's what's lacking with this group. Experience, training.
Hey, Tone, I know you gotta go because you gotta get up in the morning.
Brother?
So go ahead.
What's up, brother? What's up? Yeah, no, I'm gonna get it in right now, guys. I gotta get real early. But you have a group of people who are in fear to the point where they're in fear so much, right? They are afraid to react, right? So when a situation allows an opportunity, they'll react in a negative way and they'll use deadly force. It looks like that's the case in that situation. Where if you'd have handled things appropriately, this would have never happened. If you understand what I'm saying. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. They sat back in the cut and waited for the opportunities to say, you know what? I think I could justify a deadly force in this situation. Let me do it because I'm afraid. Whether I'm afraid or, like Sarge, like you said, you have some individuals who will just take advantage of the situation, which is bad. And we're not in that business. We're in the business of saving lives. Not to justify our behavior based on how we see or feel at the situation. It's always bad. That's what we're trying to do. But it's unfortunately, and I think when you have the wrong people in this business, this is gonna happen.
Right.
Well said, bro.
Go ahead, Tone. I'm gonna bring Seth up and he can chime in on this. But I know you gotta get up early, so I wasn't gonna keep you long. Let me just get Seth with.
Be safe out there, bro.
All right.
His feeling on.
All right. Likewise, guys, keep doing what you're doing. All right, y'all take care of yourself. Stay safe.
You too, brother.
All right now.
Yeah, Joe. Like the SARS said, and like Tony said, you rely on your training, man. And be honest with you, it's 9 of us. 2 cops could have been at the ready. We could bum rush that dude, man. It's 9 on 1. You gonna
Joe, I got a good story that my brother went through recently. You know, my brother's on the job too. I don't know if you know that.
No, I know that.
Yeah, I got a twin brother, right? And we are
double trouble, double trouble.
And he's a sergeant just like me.
Oh, that's dope. That's
Yeah.
dope.
So check this out. He was in a similar situation like this. This has been a few months ago, where they respond to a guy with a sword, right? So this dude got a sword, similar to this other guy with the box cutter. This dude swinging the sword around, acting stupid, mental conditions going on, maybe suicide. A cop. Well, there's, I don't know, 3 to 4 to 5 cops on scene. My brother shows up with another sergeant, another officer, and my brother knows this other guy, right? This other cop. And my brother, he told me this himself. He says, I knew if I didn't take some action, this cop over here was going to use some deadly force on this guy. And I can't have that around me. So my brother snuck the dude from the side, picked him up, slammed him on the ground. They took him into custody. And this dude had a sword. So you can't tell me that can't be done with somebody with a box cutter. Now, I'm not have to sacrifice their lives here. But if the opportunity presents itself, that's the action we got to take, because we know what we signed up for in this situation.
Right.
So, I mean,
What's up, fellas?
What's up, brother?
Pretty
What's going on, man? Good to see you, Smooth.
All right.
I see your
So-
boys is winning. I see your boys is winning.
Well, I got a little stressed right now. So, so I was listening to you guys. So I got to see it earlier. I'm gonna be honest. I can see that it could go either way. It could have been handled differently, but see, I'm listening to the 3 of you guys and the brother that was on there earlier. I think what could be problematic is we are interjecting what we would do, right? Mm-hmm. So all of us are very familiar with Graham versus Connor that provides each officer objectable reasonableness, right? Mm-hmm. Objective reasonableness. So that means that each officer gets to make their own determination of when they feel the deadly force is to be utilized.
True.
We've all been on the same similar type of calls where somebody may be trying to kill themselves. From what I saw, they knew he had a box cutter, but didn't he also have his hand inside of his shirt or something they couldn't see what he had?
No, he had his hands out, but he did make, like, and I think you might have been on, he did make the motion like he had something else. And then he came around quick and he took a shooting stance. So you gotta be able to read that as well.
So there's 2 things. If I looked at it earlier with Craig, and I think there could have been some things done different just tactically, because it had 30 minutes, less lethal, canine, but all of this too, we know that the guy's got a deadly weapon, box cutter, whatever, right? It could be used to harm somebody. Mm-hmm. And then he makes a sudden movement, and then it sounds and it looks really bad because it's a bunch of contagious fire, right? You have, it sounds like every officer is shot, which, when I first saw it, I was kind of like, whoa. So I actually think, and I know it sounds bad because, Joe, we've talked enough that I don't make light of death of anybody.
Right.
Do I think things could have been done differently? Yes. Do I think it was a justified shooting? I would say yes, I think it was justifiable based on what the officers were dealing with at that time. However, I think circumstances could have been handled differently.
Right. I'm going to say it was a justified shooting based on policy. Based on policy, because like you said, the officer, not us, because we all been in tight situations where we know officers would have wanted a lot more aggressive, but our levels and our own individual experiences allow our threshold of fear to be different from a lot of other people. But by policy, I can see it was a reason that officer can make a strong argument. I didn't know what he was coming around with. He came around really fast. He was in a shooting position. So by policy, I think they will have no problem justifying this. And the problem that I have when we look at these incidents, could have been done better. yes, if it had been done better, it would have probably saved this guy's life.
Right.
So because we have that broad range of when an officer is in fear and whether it's reasonable or not, you got to balance that out in a sense to where did they make a mistake not doing better? Because policy says the reasonableness, they're going to be justified. But if we all can sit here and even Tatum says, yes, it could have been done better. So
Did,
now,
did they have
Tatum?
did they have a negotiator out there with him?
No.
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 Well, guys, let me ask you a question. So you feel that 9-on-1, that all 9 officers, although it may be policy, we could say it's justifiable, that
Right.
all 9 was in fear of their life.
They
Like
were
really?
that close. They were that close. Now, I tell you,
All 9?
Look. We all 4, right, could be at a subject. And if I feel my life is in danger, right, but you guys don't, but I can make a strong argument why. Look how close they was. I thought he was turning around with a gun. But if you guys say, nah, that don't mean I'm wrong. It is reasonable for me at that close to see a guy quickly hurry up and turn around and take a position of a shooting stance that we all know. A shooting stance. You can't say I didn't fear my life. I didn't think that. I think it's even a stronger argument when you have that many officers shoot that they all were in fear than when you have one person shoot and you got a bunch of guys standing around saying, damn, what the hell did he see? I think between all of their assessment of fear, it's going to be a much stronger argument to say, like, yes, he felt the same thing. He felt it. The guy turned around and he was in a shooting stance. I've seen something in his hand. I can't wait for it to be shot at before I have to return fire. Mm-hmm. But we can't neglect the fact that it could have been handled much differently. Now, the difference of the way it was handled, right, could have mean the difference of this guy living or dying.
Yeah.
One thing,
that's the problem in law enforcement. Like when we kill when police kill somebody, we all should be able to say they tried. There was no other options and they did exactly. But if we can all sit here and say, man, they could have done it better. Then that's the question right there. And we're all saying better.
I think the issue, because I know we're all in different states, right? That there's no standardized training. Yeah. So me here in California, and you already know how I feel, Joe. I think that we have the best, according just statistically, is the number of officers we have in our incidences and deadly force. I think that California cops have the highest standard of training of any state. Mm-hmm. So, but we get a lot of training in comparison to, I think, other states. So I can be critical, right? And then you go, well, how often do these cops train? Mm-hmm. How often, you know, if they don't have, you know, if it's a smaller department and they don't have a negotiator, I don't know if that's privy. Did you guys have negotiators on our department? I don't know the size of your departments. You know, we were able to have
30 minutes. Somebody that you had way more enough time because most of them guys are call outs, but they got to take home units. You throw your lights and sirens on. If you're in the city,
you got bigger department. Like we had a full-time SWAT team and then 2 collateral SWAT teams. A lot of departments can't put that out. So
I think
right, but go ahead.
In 30 minutes, all of us, we're not hostage negotiators, but we're able to talk down. We're able to de-escalate things. I believe, and I'm talking for myself, if I was on the scene, I better talk this guy down. Yes. It wouldn't happen that way. I strongly believe my skill set is very high when it comes to talking and bringing people all the way down. I personally feel that the situation could be handled differently. Yeah, it may be justified by policy. Okay, we'll get that out there. But it could have been handled different, especially in the eyes of the public. We are here to serve, guys. Mm-hmm. We're not here to take heads.
Yeah, I agree with that.
We're here to serve. And I think the mentality is we going crazy. You know, the wild west, we're going to shoot them down, just do whatever. In 30 minutes, you can't talk nobody down. I mean, and you can't, there's no way you can sit down, talk to the person, get close. I've been in a situation, man, when I had a guy put his gun down on the ground. He threatened to kill himself. And I'm not no negotiator. He put his gun away. It was the 13. We got him to a health crisis center. He was for 72 hours. There's no need like that. Unless you gunpoint in 30 minutes before he even got to that far.
Right. You
Talk
have,
the guy off the ledge. I'm sorry. It may be justifiable, guys, but we got to remember, in the eyes of the public, how is this looking?
Yeah, bad.
yeah, it does. It looks real bad. But the problem that I have, like, you got 30 minutes. Why are you guys so close?
Exactly.
Why are you guys? Like,
Why are they?
there's no need to rush in and eliminate a threat because the only threat he was is to himself.
Right.
You had traffic saying there was nobody in his immediate area. Pull back a little bit.
Absolutely.
You're creating the deadly force situation by being so close.
Right.
Like, you know, get some guys with shields. We used to carry certain units will have shields in their cars. 30
Right.
minutes, you can get a guy with a shield. You can get a negotiator. There's so much things that should have been that was allowed. Like, and they didn't because they were so close. Like deadly force, they tell you, and this is nationwide. Try to find other options before you take a life. And then with 30 minutes, they was at the same position. Actually, one guy even walked closer. Like, you got nothing but time. I always told time is on your side. If the subject's going to give you time, you take it. You take it because time works in your favor, not his.
Correct.
You can within 30 minutes, you could have been so much barriers. You could have a crisis intervention team. Why are we so close to eliminate a threat when there was no need to rush in? There is cases that you do rush in because the subject is a bunch of people around. You're on the highway, traffic is blocked.
Right. My brother from California, Joe, I just got to quick. My brother from California, with all the training that your guys had, what do you feel could have been done different? Let's say, for example, what do you feel would have been another solution as towards deadly force?
Well, I think tactically, I wouldn't have been that close. I would have provided myself some more distance, at least been behind a unit or something, had some cover. Like I said, it's really hard for me because I don't know a whole lot about the department, so I don't know what resources. As far as us, we have so many resources that we would have had a negotiator out there. Does this department have we have a 40 millimeter less lethal? I don't know if all departments have those, but if that would have been allotted to them, maybe that's something that could have been deployed. That's what I'm saying. I don't know. It just looked really weird because they were all lined up out there. So I was just kind of like you know what? Go ahead, Shane.
They're lining up like bowling pins. It's like
so tactically, that's why I'm saying tactically, it looked like a mess. Because it kind of looked like a firing squad in a way, because I was like, who does that? But again, this is, we're having a discussion. It sounds like you guys were all pretty tactical. I don't know if you guys did SWAT. I didn't do SWAT, but I was on a special enforcement team. So these are things, it looks like these officers, and again, it sucks because somebody lost their life, but I'm going to stick with, I think it's a justified, and I know that might make some people upset by policy. I think it's a justified shooting. Now that we're Monday night quarterbacking it, if I was there, could I have said that I wouldn't have shot him? Because someone asked me that earlier. I think that I probably shoot too. I don't know.
Hey, Sid, let me ask you something, right? If you can find other options, right? That's what you're saying, right? You could have found other options.
But I'm saying I can say that based on the resources by my department. So I'm saying we have to be careful because we're saying, well, these guys should have did X, Y, and Z, and we're not knowing what resources were allotted to.
So Tennessee, right? Tennessee State Police don't have a negotiator. I find that very hard to believe. Tennessee State Police, and you had two other local officers there as well. So to say not between state police and two local departments, no other resources, 30 minutes. That's kind of a hard pill to swallow.
It is, and I agree, guys.
Kind of a hard pill to swallow. You got 30 minutes. The guy's standing there. What is the rush?
Right.
You got 9 heads there. Nine. And you tell me somebody couldn't come up with another option? First of all, I was like, guys, step back. We got time. He's not going anywhere. He's standing right here. There's no need to rush in and eliminate a threat. He's only one threat he has is to himself right now.
Now, I got a question for the three of you. Now, they were all out there. They were clearly trying to work with him because they would have shot him before 30 minutes. And then by his sudden movement, would you guys say that by his sudden movement of spinning around in a shooting stance that he now created some exigencies that made these officers feel they had to use deadly force?
From the location that they were standing at, yes, 100%. 100. If I'm standing that close and you turn around like that,
right,
I see something. I don't have time to wait for you to shoot me. I think that's what justifies the actual shooting. But at the same time, I wouldn't have been standing that close. That you got 30 minutes. Why are we that close?
Mm-hmm.
So you.
My chief had saying, he said, all things are lawful, but is it advantageous? Meaning that if you have time to do something, although you may have policy backing you up, can we do something else to save a person's life? And we all took that very seriously. Again, like you guys said, it might be justifiable. They were standing too close. There was no tactical anything being done.
Right.
And the eyesight looking in, it looks execution. Although maybe one or two might have been in fear. When he turned around real quick, we probably would have jumped back, what have you.
Right.
If you up on here like a person like that,
Right.
of course you're gonna be careful. Give time. Time is on our side. Space is on our side. Distance is on our side. Use those techniques. Use our training to your advantage. That's all. You know.
So another thing you got to think about is there's case law that says if you as an officer creates the danger that results in this guy getting killed, you and your department can be held liable. Right. So I don't know if these cops knew that, but that is case law. Mm-hmm. So it applies to if you go into somebody's house who's suicidal. Mm-hmm. But in this case, they were so close, you know what I mean? It applies the same way in my eyes.
Yeah, right. I understand and I get what you're saying. How many times have you seen that apply? Because I've seen incidents where the officers actually, they force the deadly force, and we're trained never to force. The deadly force incident is supposed to come at us, like stepping in front of a vehicle. Like, it's a shame that we had to create policies. Don't step in. We was in training. All the training says you as an individual cannot stop a vehicle. Why would you step in front of a vehicle? You're creating no other option but to use deadly force when you step in front of a vehicle. We've seen that play out time and time again. Vehicle, I can't move. I'm about to get hit. I'm going to get killed. Bang, 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 bang. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, that one.
And I just think, guys, in the climate that we're in, we know how things are looking, and the majority of us want to try to do the best job we can. But in this particular climate, especially with all eyes on us, we got to use our better judgment. Mm-hmm. We got to use a lot better judgment because we're looking bad. Like, all you guys are experts in your field. All of us are really deep down inside good cops, just want to get home to our families. Yeah. But the climate that's going on, these guys got to go out when they morning briefing, be like, hey guys, be careful out there. Use good common sense. Negotiate. I like to know what type of talk is happening before you get out into the street after your briefing in the morning. You know, you go over your bolos and what else is going on. What's your mindset when you go out there? Is your mindset, hey, let me try to help this guy. He's at his worst day, at the worst time. He's talking gibberish. We know he's in a bad element. How can we turn this around? How can we make sure that we all come home safe? That has to be your mindset going out there.
Well, that's
better outcomes.
Bro, that's the problem with some departments, though, right? Because some departments have a guardian mindset, some have a warrior mindset. Yeah. And if you put out there saying you're in danger 24/7, you know, kill or be killed, well, you're going to create that culture that's going to result in people being killed unnecessarily. You got to have a culture of guardianship, in my opinion, and that's what we try to create during my roll calls and the whole culture of my department, anyway.
I mean, we do have to be. We also have to be fair. I mean, we've had. And was over the past week we've had a certain amount of officers that have been killed. Like, I mean, just at the beginning of this year alone, that would actually probably put a lot of people, you know, police officer at higher alert, because it. I don't want to say, because I don't think it's ever a war on police. You know, I don't go that, you know, that far. But I could see police officers on the street right now being maybe at higher alert. You know, you got cops sitting in cars that are getting shot. And, you know, I've been in these certain situations, and, you know, just lucky for me, a lot of them, you know, I was able to walk away from and not have to take somebody's life. But I just think sometimes it's tough. I'll say I think things could have been done differently, you know, more tactfully or tactically. like I said, I saw it and I go, man, this it just looked rough. And then the extra shots at the end, and I just go, man, that's contagious fire.
Yeah,
you know,
the person was down and he still was shooting.
But you know, brother, you made a good.
Like, where's the threat at? Like, he's on the ground and you're shooting.
Yeah, the other two shot. I'm like, what in the world is going on? But as my brother in California mentioned, you made a good point. We could be on high alert because there's quite a few officers who are getting blown down, but that's nothing compared to who officers are shooting down in the street right now. There's no comparison. We lost 5, but at least 200 people lost their lives in the past 2-3 weeks.
Yeah, but the difference and the pushback I would give you on that is the dynamics of us being involved in an officer-involved shooting are way different than when people shoot cops. So I'm responding to a DV, or I'm on a traffic stop, and someone may create a situation where I have to use deadly force, right? Where I walk into a house and the guy doesn't like the police, and then he shoots me. So I don't know if we can compare. We can compare those two, because I don't think that any of us get up in the morning and say, hey, after we leave roll call and go 10-8, I'm going to go kill somebody. Where when we show up, when we show up 97 on a call, you can have some people say, oh, the cops are here. When I open the door, I'm going to kill the police officer.
No,
so that would be my pushback on that, Shane.
Okay. What I would,
Shane, you disagree with him on that one?
Yeah, what I would say to that is that, again, if you look at the climate today, our officers have made a lot of bad decisions that has continued to escalate the climate that we're in today. There's a lot of shootings that we went over today on this forum the past couple of months that, in my eyes, were not justifiable. And in the eyes of the public, they're upset, they're angry, they may be on edge. The moment they see us, they don't see us as helpers, as servants, or guardians, like my brother mentioned. They see us as the enemy, sadly, because a lot of us have forgot what it is to be on the job and to do some good work. So you're going to have people on edge. You're going to have people upset. We are the ones that can help change this climate. That's the answer is us. We're the professionals. We're the ones who's trained. These guys upset. We have a higher standard. And if most of us look to that standard, the public is that way. These guys are really doing their job. We're seeing a shift. We're seeing a change. We're seeing more training. We're seeing more mental health advocates being brought in. Things are taking a turn. Then the climate is going to come down. So I do agree. You may have some people extra on edge, but it's us to turn that around. I strongly believe that. I remember growing up, guys. Officer Johnson, we used to run to the officer. Hey, he's here, here to hang with us. Now they run away from you. Oh, wait a second. I see the popo down the street. I'm going the opposite direction. Why is that? Are people getting worse?
Well, I'll say that I think a lot of that is media driven and it's agenda driven to drive a wedge between law enforcement and people in the community. Most of my 15 years, I worked in a bad neighborhood. What are the two things that we always hear, man? It's so rough in the hood. People hate the police. And Joe, we were talking about this last week. I didn't have that experience that people hated me in the bad neighborhood. Most of the people were okay with, damn, the Niners gonna lose, man.
I saw your face go down.
Man, this dude just broke. Yeah. Most people are happy to see us there. And then you have a few people in the neighborhoods that, of course, don't like us there. So I think that the media does this big push with the numbers. The police officers are shooting. I think we roughly shoot and kill 1,000 people every year, right?
Right.
But if you look at those, because I had for my undergrad, I had to do a write-up on all this. Man, when we start looking at statistical data, when you look at out of those 1,000, 80% of those people were either armed with a gun, knife, or they used a vehicle as a weapon to try to kill the officer or someone else. You start really looking at, and again, I don't like to make light of death of anybody because I think death is tragic, fellas. I've seen, and I'm sure you guys have too, I've seen way too much of it.
Right.
But I think that police officers, we can do better. But man, we're put in some really bad positions sometimes, and we have to make split-second decisions. And you know what? Sometimes we're wrong. Sometimes, but I would say more than not, we're right. I was looking at some statistics that dated way back to 2008, fellas, and when they looked at all of the use of forces and all this in comparison to police officer contacts, it was like 0.5% or something crazy. Wow. So I think that I think on average every year, isn't it about 5 million or something police contacts?
Yeah.
Dro?
Yeah. No, yeah.
So think of this, out of 5 million police contacts that we're dealing with people, we have 1,000. We have 1,000 deaths, right?
100%.
I mean, I'm just saying, fellas, I see where you guys are coming from, but we can do better. But when we say that this is, when we say like, oh, it's out of control, when the data doesn't support that. The data supports that, yeah, these cops can do a lot better, but man, they're really not shooting that many people. And again, I just hate saying that because I don't want to see anybody shot.
Don't hate saying that, but that's information that you should be sharing with the audience. People need to understand that, because I've said the same similar contents. So you should say that. Say it. You have to say it. Yeah, especially in forums like this where we zero in on the bad. I can't and people are like, yo, how is it that you was a cop and you can't stand you got a platform against bad policing? Because good cops really understand how bad policing affects their job day to day. I think I was in high school when the plunger incident happened. We all know about the plunger incident. As a cop, I was getting blamed for something that I wasn't even a cop. I wasn't even involved. Bad policing affects good police officers. Point blank, period. So I know firsthand how bad it is. Do we have 10 times more officers going out doing the job correctly? Yes. But just like in the Black community, the negative, that subculture affects, right, the entire community. We sit here and talk about the numbers all the time. The numbers all the time, it supports actual good policing. The numbers in the Black community support the Black community is doing much better than people think, because of media, because of Chicago, because of Fox News. One in every Black male will be that. Yo, that is so not true. The numbers don't support that. And like I think you might have said, the media has a lot of responsibility for that. They have a lot of responsibility for that. And you have more justified shootings than you have unjustified. Where we're not having a discussion, right, on justified shootings. We're having a discussion on the bad shoots, the bad killings, which is a very small percent of everybody. So it's just, I think don't be afraid to say, oh, I hate to say this. No, it needs to be said.
No. Also funny, data is data. If the numbers don't lie. Men lie, women lie, numbers don't.
But sometimes how it's presented, and they're like, man, listen to this cop just be dismissive of people being shot.
Right.
Yeah, but you're sitting on a police brutality matters, right, platform, and time again, you've shown, I'm not biased, I'm calling it from a right or wrong standpoint, not a black or white, not a blue against everybody else. The officer was wrong, and I'm here to say he was wrong. No, you might think this, like we said with this shoot, by policy, these guys are justified by policy. Yeah. Could have been done differently. Could have been done differently. Yeah. I believe if I was there, I've been in situations like this, right? You don't stand within feet of somebody with a box cutter where there's nobody else around. You pull back. You can tell you got dealing with somebody with mental illness. You try to get crisis intervention team. A lot of officers, what they're forgetting in deadly force policy is that the sentence that says, if you have time, find other options before taking that life. If you have time, 30 minutes, nothing changed of what they was doing. They actually got closer in that time frame. It just doesn't make sense.
Right.
It doesn't. You had something you wanted to ask the group?
Oh my God, I can talk?
Yeah. She was like, let me get it.
Oh. Hi, guys.
He says, how you doing? We love talking and chopping up with Joe. We apologize.
Oh my God, I've been trying to get like the longest. I
Good
have
to see you, sister. Good to see you.
you too. I have something to say.
Yes, ma'am.
Our conversations. All right. So Cedric, I know that California has a new policy for when officers do shoot, they have to have look at him, he's hurt.
The last
Sorry.
Thank you. Focus.
It's okay.
Real bad. Right?
My boys are losing, so sorry.
It's okay. The new policy for California is that they have to use all options before they shoot the kill. I think this incident with the Tennessee would be a great tool to use, because you said that you would have shot even after 30 minutes, but yet and still, even though policy says you have that right, I don't feel it was necessary, just because they didn't try anything else to de-escalate the situation, only a conversation, but there was no other tools used to save this man's life. So how can you sit and justify it knowing that based on California policy, because they are top in making laws and changing things, comparing it to that, how can they prove that they tried every reasonable options available before they shot him, and they didn't? So I think this Tennessee case incident would be a great example for California, because they always say split-second decisions. There was no split-second decision in this situation for me seeing.
Well,
Is there, if you're chasing somebody and then they turn around and they have a gun, that's a split-second decision because you're in a chase pursuit. So you really don't see the activity that's going on.
Okay, the split-second decision is when they pull the trigger, right?
Right.
He turns around with something in his hand and he takes a position, a
But
stance
how
as
is
a
that
firearm.
a split-second
Because
decision
I
if
have
there
to-
was other options before within that 30-minute time span
No, but-
that nobody out
okay.
of all 9 of them did not try anything to
No, I get what you're
see what
saying,
I'm
but the
saying?
split-second decision is totally based on when they pull the trigger, not prior and not after.
We don't know, they did not try everything. Yeah, they didn't try everything. They stood and talked to him. The camera was on the whole entire time.
Right.
They didn't try other things. They actually had freaking rifles in their hands. Two of the officers had rifles. They pulled up with rifles. So they did not try everything, Tatum.
Okay, so they talked to him for 30 minutes.
Yes.
Again, it's really hard for me to really break this down because I don't know everything that department has allotted to them. Is it the state police? Do they have a canine? Did they have a canine available?
Police is probably one of the best equipped department law enforcement in every state. And Sarge, you was a sergeant in the SWAT team, so you work with state police a lot. Shane, so tell state police, are they equipped or what?
They're equipped with everything, guys. K9, less lethal, beanbag, guns, you name it. They have everything at their hand.
Sarge?
Everything. And
If
I would go state. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Sarge. I'm sorry. I apologize.
I would just co-sign it. If they're state police, they're a lot more equipped than usually most departments, except for the big metro departments. So they have these tools at their disposal.
Exactly.
But I don't know if they were used. They didn't look like they were used in those 30 minutes. The taser, the 40, beanbag, you name it.
Shields.
Shields.
Right. Shields.
3-4 guys with shields could have bum rushed the man.
Right.
Over with.
Right.
Just brought an example where his brother encountered a sword. Now, something like that, maybe someone else would have did it, maybe some wouldn't, but he found the opportunity to go ahead and make a move to do something.
Absolutely.
I just think, guys, that time, if it's 30 minutes, all right, I'm gonna be out there with an hour with you. One time we was on a situation where it was a domestic violence case, guys, and we all had our guns trained, but we was out there for 2.5 hours. He came home safe and we got home safe.
Good. That's the way to do
it. You got time on your side.
Yeah, time is definitely always on your
there was
side.
no cover, there was no concealment, nothing. You out there, okay, yeah, come shoot me. Of course I'll be fearing for my life. I'm this close, yeah, shoot me, knock me down, But
Tatum says it takes longer to get resources. I mean, they had time, like you
not
said.
for
They definitely had time. State police had the resources.
you
and then
been
they had
first, brother,
local-
not from the state. Local, it took a little time, but state got everything like this.
Yeah.
And they all didn't show up at the same time.
Right.
They had to be communicating to say, okay, this is what's going on. So somebody couldn't be like, okay, well, this is what's going on. State police, do you have this? Or local police, do you have this? Sheriff, do you have that?
30 minutes is a long time.
Everybody didn't show up at the same time.
And you got 2 locals, and then you got state police. State police, you can't tell me didn't have the resources, because the locals call state police when they don't have the resources. State police is the elite, supposedly now, the elite of resources compared to the locals.
Correct.
So to say that they've used their resources wisely, we all 100% don't know. But we know the job well enough to know state police normally has the resources.
Yes. Yes.
So
Hey, look, hey, Joe, Sarge and Sad looking like they on a SWAT team, man. You guys kind of buff, man. I see what's going on there. I see y'all. I see it.
Yo, they both work out constantly.
Dude, animals. I see it, man.
I want to put a workout.
Hey, I got to get back in the gym. I got to get back.
Joe, I'm going to get you, brother. I'm sorry. I'm going to hit you up this week. I promise you.
Oh, wait. Does Tatum, he said he worked. Oh, he worked with state. Oh, I thought he said he was a trooper.
I think I don't want. I hope I articulate correctly. He's basically saying that there may be resources there, but sometimes it takes time to get resources.
No,
and it might take longer than a 30-minute period, depending on the department. So, say for example, for us, our full-time SWAT team may be somewhere else. Like other departments, they have all their stuff in their cars. Even our canines sometimes respond from home. So when especially when we're on, and I know that we're changing things because I don't want to compare graveyard or whatever to this, but sometimes it may take an extremely long time to get the canine out there or get the bird up. So now we're trying to stall for time or whatever. Like I said, I don't know that everything. I know 30 minutes is quite some time to be out there, but they obviously gave it a good faith effort of trying to talk to the dude. And they were talking to him. And my argument, I guess my pushback or in agreement of using deadly force is if I'm sitting there and I'm talking to you gentlemen, and you guys are trying to talk me down, and then all of a sudden I make this move, then you have to react. Now, I agree that maybe there should have been a less lethal option there, right? That maybe with that first.
Right, prior to the shoot,
Yeah.
prior to pulling that trigger, it should have been.
That's all good and dandy. But as a civilian looking in, and as somebody who has common sense, all of that is baloney and BS, and I'm not falling for it. But they're gonna get away with it because it's part of policy. But at the same time, it's like, when do you stop hiding behind policy and use common sense and use empathy and use logic? Like, there's none of that. It's like, okay, well, policy says, based on what policy says, this is what I can do and this is what I'm allowed to do. But yet, and still, we don't hold them accountable and say, okay, a reasonable person would think otherwise.
Yeah, but
a reasonable person, like, let's stop doing that.
So here's the thing. If I'm involved in a shooting, it's not compared to what you would do, because you've never been in a shooting. And this is not me being disrespectful to you, okay? So I'm saying this, I'm not trying to come at you any kind of way. But I would say to a civilian, how many people have you rolled around with in 2 o'clock in the morning and tried to take a gun off of?
But first, I'm from the inner city, so
yeah. But I'm going to tell you this:
our perceptions is different, so I might not fear what you may fear, and that's a problem.
No. Listen, I think that everybody who has had a gun pointed at them, the difference between people living in the inner city, and I always hear people say, "Well, I lived in the hood." There's a major difference in when you live in the hood and you have to patrol the hood. It's not the same.
Well, then you shouldn't be patrolling the hood if you're.
I mean, I know my perception of having to roll around with somebody with a firearm. You don't get to tell me what fear that I have when I'm wrestling with somebody over a gun. How do you tell me when I feel that my life is in danger?
I'm not telling you. I'm just telling you, if you're in a position where you don't feel comfortable patrolling the hood, maybe you should not be in that situation.
That's not what
That's
I'm saying.
Just what it is.
There's a difference when people are always saying, well, I grew up in the hood. There's a difference between growing up in the hood and working the hood. That's what I'm saying.
If you feel you not work the hood because you're that scared. Maybe we should have more people coming from the community that they're policing. We wouldn't have a lot of these problems. I get what he's saying.
You're arguing two different points. Shane said it best, right? He says, I'm from the hood, right? So my fear level, right, is a lot greater than somebody who's not from the hood. And instead of saying, you don't know how it feels, right, to be running around with somebody with a gun, right? So my threat level on how my perception is might be a little different from somebody who doesn't do that.
Well, I'm not a regular civilian because I was in the military. So what you guys would experience, I would be comfortable going out on the street and experiencing and, doing what it is that I need to do based on my training.
I did 10 years. Listen, I did 10 years in the military, and being in the military is not the same as being a policing community.
Like I said, being in the military, your thought process is different compared to a civilian. Your thought process, being a Marine, my thought process and how I handle situations. I can't tell you whatever you fear. That's you. That's perception, right? But at the same time, if you have training, right? You have training. So you have training that leads you to make these decisions. You guys are going from 0 to 100. And
on this particular incident?
On this particular incident?
Okay. So you're saying on this particular incident, when the officer pulled the trigger, right? Not prior, because everybody in this window will agree with you, right? That prior to that, there was other options that should have been taking place. Okay, and everybody here, right? But that's not what we're talking about. The use of deadly force when the officer confronted somebody who turned around really quick with something in their hands. That split-second decision is what Sed's talking about. Yeah. Do I wait for somebody to shoot me, or do I use deadly force?
But they allowed that split-second decision to go there. They didn't
I understand.
But the only thing is about this, as Joe mentioned, is that at that particular time, when you see somebody come around, you have to protect yourself. You don't have time to think. Should they have handled things differently? I totally agree with you, my sister. Totally. They should have handled things completely differently. But when it comes to the point of somebody turning around that quick on you, via policy, we have the right to protect ourselves.
And I get that policy. And that's why I'm saying, always fall behind policy instead of holding the individual accountable for their actions, their thought processes. It's like you're an officer and you don't have to think, you don't have to reason. That's all.
But we do have to reason.
I'm not what?
I said, don't
we do have to reason because we have to justify. Listen, this is what case law and the standard is. It says that officers can use force reasonable to effect an arrest, overcome resistance, and prevent escape.
Right.
And all four of us on here may use different levels of force, just like you as a female would use a different level of force on probably a man. For that is what Graham versus Connor, all of us would probably use a different escalation of force if the damn rock got out of the car because he's bigger than everybody on earth.
I am emotional because dynamic conversations, but then y'all say civilians are emotional. I get mad.
We understand.
I'm not mad.
I get it.
If I'm talking loud, it's because I'm in my office, so I'm not like yelling at you guys. It just sounds like I'm in an echo chamber. So
but so we get it.
It's just like you said, officers are dying, but that's unfortunately part of your job.
Wait, I got to stop you right there. Can you show me anywhere? Can you show me anywhere when I joined the military and I took an oath in the military and I took an oath as a law enforcement? Can you provide where I put my hand up and I said I'm gonna die for people? Because I don't remember that.
Okay, but you also said, and I'm saying this is when I was listening, you said officers don't go out to kill. Some civilians don't go out to kill because you're talking about the
Wait.
Can I finish?
Go ahead. Sorry.
We're talking about the domestic violence situation where the New York police, NYPD, went in and shot the officers got killed. Mm-hmm. My only thought process with that is like, when they went there, they went to do their jobs. When they approached the situation and went in the house, unfortunately, they were killed doing their jobs. Now, the guy who was in the room, his intent was to kill whoever was going to go in there if it was a cop, right? But he didn't go in, he didn't, just like you say, officers don't wake up and say, I'm going to kill a cop today. He didn't wake up saying, I'm going to kill a cop today. It's whoever called and put him in that situation. I'm not saying what he did was right. That was fucked up. I never want to see any officer. I'm not a cop killer. I'm not a cop hater. If a cop dies, I really do truly mourn for them. You know what I'm saying? When it comes to like a domestic violence or any call that they're going out and responding on their job, or just sitting around waiting on their car to get targeted. But what I'm saying is, you're saying like somebody who gets pulled over, oh, I'm gonna kill a cop today. That's not necessarily the point, because they weren't expecting it pulled over. It just happened to be the officer pulled them over, and at that time they had a weapon and they decided to use it. You know what I'm saying? So you can't downplay our civilians' lives and saying, okay, well, all these cops got shot, so now officers are targeted.
What I'm saying is the dynamics of me going out to do my job and I'm put in harm's way. There's a set of circumstances in most cases, because I'm excluding bad policing, because none of us here are okay with bad policing. Right. There's a set of circumstances that are created by the people we contact that create shootings. I don't put a gun in someone else's hand and create that set of exigencies that turns into an officer involved shooting. And they make the decision, because I'm always reacting to what you do. I have to wait. Is that a gun? Is it a cell phone? I'm telling him to show me his hands. He's running from me. He's doing this. I don't know what he has. Those are all things that the other person is creating. So when Jane and I were talking, a cop getting killed, a cop being killed in the line of duty, and I'm not talking about traffic accidents. I'm talking like the sister that was sitting in her car and the two guys walked up on the car and shot and killed her.
Yes, that is.
Cops aren't doing that to civilians.
No, cops are not doing that to civilians. But at the same time, you're trying to hold civilians to a higher standard than cops because of your position, of your job title. You know what I'm saying?
I think as human beings and believers, and me as a believer of God, I do believe that when I took the oath, that my behavior should be different.
Right.
However, when we talk about accountability, this is where I have an issue with civilians, because you believe, well, you know what, Cedric, you should have more accountability than me. Why? We're grown-ups. We should all have accountability. Just like I don't want cops out there doing bad things, civilians shouldn't be out there robbing, stealing, and shooting and all that either. We need accountability on all sides.
I'll say that,
Just like if I was an accountant and I defrauded my company, they have the right to arrest me and hold me accountable because I chose that job. You see what I'm saying? You chose the job, and with your job, you have the daggone authority to take a life. That's like you have a higher standard to me than a lawyer, than an attorney or a judge, because they don't have that right to go out and shoot somebody and say, okay, well, I was in fear of my life because based on my perception and how I feel, I was justified in taking somebody else's life. So yes, you should be held to a higher standard, and yes, you should have more accountability than a regular civilian who's out here who didn't go to the academy and learn all these things. Like you are a higher standard.
Can I chime in real quick? They said I was agreeing 100%, right, of what you said up until now. I just want to clarify. Are you saying that civilians and officers should be held to the same standard?
No.
Okay, because that's where the argument.
You guys heard I said no.
I was like, wait a minute.
Take that oath. I think that I should be held to a higher standard, especially with things with my behavior. But I said it seems to me why I have such an issue with the public. And this goes back, Joe, to the media, that people don't want the accountability. Seems like it should only be on us. When is well, you know what? The police officer shot Joey because he went in and he decided to rob the liquor store with a gun. Why didn't the cops use less lethal? Why didn't the cops use the canine? Joey created his set of circumstances when he went in there with the gun. Now, if the four of us you know, I've talked to Shane. This is the first time I've talked to Sarge, but Joe and I, like I said, Joe and I chop it up every week. We may go into a situation based on our training. All of us seem to be a little older too in age. We're not 21-year-old guys. That all factors in. And I think a lot of us, I don't know, I did 15 years. I don't know how much time you guys did.
14.
Mm-hmm. All of that factors into our decision making. But I'm gonna tell you, that there was a time on the job that I probably should have shot a guy and I didn't. And I got lucky because I probably actually waited too long. So that go one or the other way. That day it went in my favor. This guy did an armed robbery, was shots fired. I chased him. We're in this alley. I can't see his hand. And it's kind of like this situation that we're talking. A guy, he kind of keeps doing this with his hand, Shane, and I'm like, man, I know this dude's got a gun. And I'm trying to give him chances to give up. Do I just shoot him? And there's something in my mind goes, man, just give him a little bit more time. And then he finally just threw himself and gave up. If I shot him, that would have been a justified shooting, 100%. Right. I made the first decision to wait a little bit longer, right? It goes back to what Shane says, sometimes we're allowed to do things per policy. If I would have got him per policy, that's perfect. And I don't want to, it would have been a good shoot. But I made the conscious and moral decision to maybe wait a little longer.
That's right.
Right.
As you should.
And so, off your point, and piggyback what said, you know, we're all, as human beings, should be accountable for our actions, all of us. But as officers, we took that oath to protect life and property. So it's really on us. Although these guys should know better, home training, good morals, go to church if you believe in God, all that good stuff. But as far as officers concerned, we're held to a much higher standard because civilians don't know what we know, have the training that we have, but at the same time, civilians should be accountable for what they do also. And I think that's the
right.
So that you were saying when it talks, so we can have all the training in the world. None of us want to die.
Right.
I don't know if you guys have experienced a deadly force or whatever, or been in a situation where you may lose your life. There comes that time. I don't care how much jujitsu I know. I don't care how much I've boxed, how much I've done community policing. I'm fighting another man and he's actively trying to get a gun. All this other stuff goes out the window.
Right.
Because no matter what, it always is going to go down to self-preservation. If you're putting me in a situation where I even have to make a decision on using deadly force, it's problematic.
Sarge, you want to answer this?
Go ahead, Sarge.
You know,
I'm trying to give you a little bit answer.
No,
said is long with it, boy.
No, I know he is, brother. Listen, he has some good points. I agree with what he said, but I agree with what, I'm sorry, I forgot the old girl's name. Marie. I agree with everything you said.
Marie, passionate Marie. That's how sister.
Super passionate, and she's right in a sense, because I just saw a video today, and this is what works against us as officers, right? I saw a video today where there's a cop is tasing a 65-year-old guy out of a wheelchair.
Oh,
yeah, come on, man. And that's what you know gives us a bad name, makes us all look bad. Of course, the old man in the wheelchair was a black guy. The cop was a white dude. You know, this is the type of shit we're trying to avoid. Now, that's where Marine's coming from right there. She sees this shit. I see these videos every day, and we break them down in roll call so my officers don't go out and make fools out of themselves and make me look bad. So that's what we're trying to do here. I agree. You know, this shooting we're talking about is going to be justified. I'm just not okay with it. That's all. I'm thinking things should have been handled totally differently and better.
But let me ask you something. We hear all the time, right? People say civilians or citizens should be accountable. When they're not accountable? When this guy got shot, he's probably going to do prison time. Like the system works. When
they get caught, they're going to be held accountable.
So when I hear this argument, well, citizens need to be accountable. Just tell me a time where you see somebody shoot an officer and they don't be held accountable. Somebody robbed somebody, they're not held accountable. I mean, I went after robbers. We went to court. They got time. Like I think the problem is that them not being held accountable is not the issue. Is when we see officers get a pass on bad behavior.
So, and I knew Joe was going to go there. So let me ask you guys this. Is it officers getting...
I can't hear you.
is attacking me now.
Okay, go ahead.
Can you
Go ahead.
I'm getting a million messages because people want to just brag me because my boys finally lost. So you guys are talking. I'm seeing the messages just coming in. I'm talking all that. So would you guys say that are cops getting a pass, or by policy they're finding? Now, if you want to say that you guys think policy needs to be changed, I'll listen to that. But are we saying that police officers are just getting a pass because they're not being convicted in court, or they're being found not guilty for policy violations?
Depends on the state. It depends on the state. Some states are holding cops accountable. Some departments are, and by and far they are. But there's other departments that are not, because they got different policies. There's no across the board policy in terms of use of force or policies, no matter what they are. Each department has their own policy. For instance, when it comes to the taser, some guys can tase for disobeying a lawful order. We have to have active aggression to use our taser, meaning we're getting attacked. So that's the problem right there. But by far, they are being held accountable in my department for sure.
And so, like Bree, who served in the military, like myself, so you have a mindset, because you understand the UCMJ, right? The UCMJ, but see, the UCMJ applies to all branches of the service, regardless. You have to.
That's my problem. Like, the police needs to have that, because then it'll be clear cut and dry. You know, each department, you know, each of our units, you have your own policies and everything like that. But all in all, if something happens, we're all held to the same punishments. We're all held to the same stand. Like, it's no bias. You know what I'm saying? So we're letting these departments and IA make a decision on something that is nationwide happening. You know what I'm saying? So because it's nationally happening, why have a national set of standards that everybody follow? The same thing happen nationally. You know what I'm saying? It's not like different circumstances, different incidents.
Right.
Well, we can also say, Marie, that there's been an uptick in more cops being convicted. We're seeing, because of what's going on and what's happening in society today, we are seeing more cops than ever in my lifetime. I don't know if your guys agree, than ever before. Of course, we got a whole lot of more work to do. We know that. But I'm seeing a lot of uptick that are throwing a book at these cops who are doing bad things on the job. They, the ones who get help, they're definitely doing their time.
I think we want to see it more often, even for the little stupid stuff that is really unnecessary. I think there should be like a data, and then you should go back to that data and say, okay, how many times has this officer gotten in trouble for the same situation? He doesn't get to go to another department and shuffle and start all over again, and his record doesn't follow him. You know what I'm saying?
Joe, you know why I'm smiling? Because Joe's thinking about my core use of forces in 1 month.
Thing leads to so many eventually.
He called 4 use of force complaints in 30 days.
Damn.
In 30 days.
But what did you do?
Said what you was doing, man.
What did you do?
I work the department that I work for in California. I'm going to say that and I loved it. A lot of people love working for Riverside PD because it is a very, I don't know if you guys heard of it. We're actually, Riverside PD along with Mesa PD are the ones that actually created your felony traffic stops.
Okay.
So we're known to be a pretty aggressive police. Like, you come there to do police work, because we have a lot of gang issues and things like that. So we're an active city, not as active as maybe like a Compton or something, but more the medium. So I work, like I said, the worst part of our city. So yeah, that's what's going on. People weren't on their best behavior, so they had to ride the lightning.
Right. Do you guys, who's in agreement?
Than deadly force. Go ahead.
You guys here, who agrees, right, in a national policy?
I'm okay with it as long as it's in terms of use of force. Maybe I don't think it needs to be across the board for every single policy. I'm talking about use of force when it comes to taser or using OC or using a gun, obviously. But because I know these small departments, especially the small ones, are behind the times, man.
Say something. You guys said in the military, there's a UJC, there's an international code across all the
Uniform Code of Military Justice. So she knows what an Article 15 is, and we were in different branches of the service.
Yes.
There's certain universal codes that Kubo, we all know those things being in the military. So you get violations for the same exact, thing.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
I think,
guys,
go ahead. Sorry, Shane, go ahead.
That may help us having something that nationally across the board. I mean, if it works for the military and it's been successful,
right? We have to check the Constitution. The Constitution allows for federalism, and federalism says that each state is able to govern their own municipalities, right? I would say we do have some things set federally, because I would say Graham versus Connor, Tennessee versus Garner, Scott Harris, Miranda versus Arizona. So there are things that we should all be abiding by. We all know those, and we're all in different states that are guidelines for use of force, right? I think the biggest issue would be the money wise. How when we start doing things federally, nobody's going to get more money probably than the state of California and maybe New York, because we're having. So then how do we do things federally? And I wanted to ask you guys this, back to the, like, did that department, do they have tasers? I didn't see the officers do. Are they, do they carry tasers on their hips? Like, all of these things were implemented on our department because we actually fell under a consent decree. I don't know. Are you guys familiar with the Taisha Miller shooting?
No. Explain.
Okay, so I was still in the military, late 90s. Taisha Miller was a young lady, may her soul rest in peace, that was in one of our county areas, and she was a female, but she was a gangster, right? Everybody was scared of her. She carried guns, all this. So one night they're out drinking and having a good time, her and her friends. She falls asleep in the car and she has a gun on her lap. So officers from my department responded out there. They're trying to wake her up. One of the officers decides to break out the window with his baton. And then you guys know what happened after that. They broke out the window. She grabbed the gun. It turned into an officer-involved shooting. She lost her life. A lot, the feds came in on that. They put us under stipulated judgment. This is where we actually started having to put out demographics on our stops. It was horrible. We would have to say we stopped a white person, black person.
Yeah. It was a card, right? You had to fill out a card. And
the audio recording, and then the co-bans, which for me, I'm always cool with the video recordings because I think it actually helps officers more than it hurts us.
Definitely.
Yeah, I agree with you. Totally.
Definitely.
Yep.
So I guess my point, fellas, was when we're talking about doing stuff federally, then I think it's going to be money, Marie, that's going to come into play when we talk about we're going to have one set standardized thing for every, what'd you say, Joe, 10,000 police departments?
18,000.
18,000?
Yeah.
Wow.
So I have a question for that. We already spend money on a lot of things that officers, I believe, sometimes really don't need. But
like what?
No, seriously. But a lot of people are saying, you take away the state rights, right? So if it's based on your amendment rights as a human, as a U.S. citizen or whatever, or just a human in general, why couldn't it be a straight policy where if it's the Fourth Amendment, the First Amendment, or whatever amendment, you know what I'm saying? Where it's like, okay, based on these, this is federal, but those are human rights, right? Take the federal, it's still human rights on the state level. You see what I'm saying?
Hey, said she's really not anti-police, right?
No, I'm really
I
not.
know she's not.
It's like, we had these talks all the time. Her military, right? That standard is so high that when it comes down to the police, she'd be like, that would have never happened. That would have never. So she's always thinking of her own personal.
We're always, I work my DTAC, so I was a defensive tactics instructor, and my supervisor was a SEAL. He's on SEAL Team 2. It is unfair to compare the military mission's not the same as the law enforcement mission. For one, when we deploy into another country, if I'm on a SEAL team or whatever it might be, I know that I'm going into hostile territory, and a lot of times we're mission oriented. Our mission may be to go in and get somebody. Our mission may be to provide humanitarian support or set up water or whatever. But we're under the understanding that we're somewhere where people may take pot shots at us, right? When we're in the military, And the flip side is I respond to a DV call. Marie calls me for domestic violence, right? Or Marie's sister, because I don't want to use her, say Marie's got a sister. She calls me for a DV. She calls me for help. I go there. I'm trying to help her. Now they both jump on me. So the dynamics are just so different. Yes, law enforcement is paramilitary, but we don't have the same missions. So Marie, I would say that your standard of what you're comparing the military to law enforcement to, I would say that it's probably a bit unfair.
No, it is, but I think it's because of the level of responsibilities you guys hold as far as like, you know, overseeing civilians. I think that responsibility is even bigger than the military because we have set missions, you know what I'm saying? But this is when you're dealing with just everyday civilians, everyday people, you know, like I think the training needs to be a little bit higher and comparable to the military. Because I think when people think military, they thinking, you know, you get this, you put the suit on and then you go overseas and you fight wars and things of that nature. But there's still more to it than that. And I wanted to get to a point where you said you have all these skills in training, like boxing, jiu-jitsu, and all of that other stuff. But if it came down to it, you would still resort to deadly force. Why? If you have all these training and you can stop that person, is that what you mean? Like, why would it be where you still resort to?
If the threat level, right, elevated all the way to his life about to be taken, he has to match the threat that he's receiving. They're trying to kill.
But
now,
if it's not a gun, but if it's just you two scrapping,
then he might not use deadly force.
Depending on who it is. I mean, like I use The Rock. Do we all believe we know who The Rock is? 6'8", 280. Do you believe that The Rock could kill somebody with his bare hands?
Oh yeah, most definitely.
So I know that civilians all the time, they don't understand unarmed does not make you it does not make you out of,
right. You're right.
Right.
It's crazy. It's crazy because, you know, I have a problem with the Eric Gardner case, choking, right? You got you got several different officers. You really didn't even have a charge because everybody thinking he was selling cigarettes. I know firsthand he's been arrested several times in the past. Cigarettes had nothing to do with that encounter. So they really didn't even have nothing. But like people was like, yo, especially officers who know me, they say, yo, so you never choked nobody before, right? And I go, my situation, it was one-on-one and I was fighting a rock. So I was getting thrown around. And the only way that I knew how to defend myself at that time, because I was being overpowered, was to get on his neck and choke the hell. I mean, I choked him until he got on his knees. And he was like, all right, you got it. I said, put your hands behind your back. So yes, in a situation that arose to me about to get really killed by somebody using their hands, I resulted in a chokehold because I was scrapping. And if that didn't work, I probably would have pulled out my gun and shot him. Because at the end of the day, it's me or him that's going home.
Right.
So you can't put a broad statement on every incident because every incident is different.
I fought a dude that was on bath salts. He was kicking my ass, man. I was fighting my freaking life. I could have shot him if I wanted to, but these guys are cock diesel strong, man. They got some demon strength that you really with his bare hands, man. He was throwing me through sheetrock. I'm like, this is crazy. So it all depends. Like said, you got people out there that can kill you, but you want to be. We trained to be a threat level or higher. You pull out a knife, pull out a gun. You got your fight. I pull out my aspartame. I pull out my taser. You want to go a level or two higher than who you're fighting. That's just not only policy. That's preservation of our lives. You know.
Somebody said prepared mentality. Police have to match the threat level of what the criminal has.
That match, you want higher. Don't match.
No, but not everybody's a criminal. Somebody might just be having a mental breakdown, or you know what I'm saying. So I think like we have to get that out of our mindset that just because you pull somebody over, that automatically makes them a criminal, and it really doesn't, because there've been people who were just minding their business and got
going through
shot,
a mental episode,
and been killed by officers, and that's all I want. Like, I'm not anti-police. I'm not anti-white. I'm gonna pull a white person over. My sister-in-law is white, damn it, and I love her to death. Okay, that's like my heart. So I'm not racist. I'm not anti-police. I'm not anti-police brutality. I'm not. I am anti-brutality. I'm not anti-white. I just want officers, bad officers, to be held accountable. It's disappointing every time you see it. It's like y'all not being held, not y'all, but the bad ones are being held accountable. And then the good ones aren't standing up and saying enough is enough. And I understand why. I know why, because it's retaliation. But at some point, it's like, dude, what are we doing? Because you are going to lose the public's trust. You have lost the public's trust. And that's why a lot of times you don't hear empathy towards when something happens to an officer. I have empathy. I read the comments and I'm like, damn, this is fucked up. I can't believe y'all doing this. This is wrong.
Marie, would you agree there's been an uptick in cops being held accountable? What's your thoughts on that? Because I'm seeing it left and right, people going,
no,
your thoughts.
I think they are being held accountable, but I think it's because I do so many videos and I see the ones who aren't being held accountable or who go to court and they only get probation, or they get a slap on the wrist, or they get 30-day suspension. And it's really like crazy things that they've done, but they still get a pass. And I think it's because it's the national stuff that's being told, but I see all the little, city stuff.
Where
like,
it's not just
like
a Derek Chauvin. Somebody just got beat down in handcuffs and it didn't make national news.
Right. And
the dude didn't go to the hospital, but he got bumps and bruises. And then all of a sudden you get a pass. Unless it make national news and the attention is put on the department, you have some departments that, because it didn't bring the magnitude of attention, they'll give the officer a pass.
Official Greg Long 45, do you have empathy for the criminals? Shorty do.
Why are you even?
This is two separate conversations. People act like you can't be anti-something and then want to work on something else. That's two separate situations. You can't put them together and mix them together and say, well, why don't you care about what criminals do? This is something totally different. Gang members and all of that, that's something totally different. We're trying to hold officers accountable. And this is where we get off the track because you have all of this, what about Chicago, black on black crime, which is a myth. So it's like you're taking away, you're minimizing the accountability of it because now you're like, well, what about civilians having accountability? A civilian is accountable for their damn self. An officer is accountable for themselves. Civilians, law, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, you guys need to be, y'all put on this pedestal, you need to live up to that pedestal that you guys are put on. That's my only, that's my say, my spiel.
There you go.
But you know what? I think we are. We're getting more people being accountable. I think that's happening because of the publicity of some of the bad cops that's out there. I know more could be done, Marie, but I have seen a lot of uptick in things being done, and we got to
for sure.
We got
definitely because of social media and cameras and people just really speaking out and understanding their rights now.
Okay, no, here we go. What about criminals being held accountable, right? Since when I see people go to jail, prison all the time.
We're holding them accountable every day.
Yeah. We've locked up people here and they go to prison.
I guess where I get thrown off because when I think the police get in trouble a lot.
They do.
I work in a department that I don't know some of these stories you guys talk about. Like I told you, I bumped into the damn gas pump and got written up. I got written up because they said I was in a pursuit and the car was on the other side of me. They wrote me up for saying that I was in violation of policy because I passed on the wrong side. So when I go, man, what are we talking about? The police aren't in trouble, man. IA is always on people for dealing with things internally. I just think that police officers are getting written up and in trouble way more than that civilians actually think. Sure. And I think the disconnect, Marie, is when we look at things lawfully. That's why I said if you say that you believe that policy should change, I think that people have an expectation when they see a shooting. And see, we can go back and forth on this here because we all have been in the job and we understand case law and all that. Not to say that the civilians are stupid, but you guys don't have the level of understanding because if I cammed up most civilians and I asked them to break down Graham versus Connor or Tennessee versus Connor, they can't. We all can do that. So by law, right? Because we're not, when someone goes to jail or when officers in court, it isn't the court of moral opinion. It is, did this person break policy or violate somebody's Fourth Amendment rights? And either he or she did, or they didn't by what the law and the Constitution and the Fourth Amendment says. If they don't, these people walk, and then civilians get pissed off because they don't understand the law.
But you still get in trouble. You're getting in trouble for things that you normally would do on a job, like anybody else would do on a job. But like you said, when it comes to the law and, you know, being responsible for somebody's actions and your actions, I think that's where we're saying that you guys don't get held accountable enough. It's not the things that you do while you're normally at work, which you should get in trouble and written up for. We're talking about more so when it relates to brutalizing a civilian, shooting an unarmed person, unjustifiably. Those are the things that we don't want to know what you did with a pencil. That's not our problem. You didn't wear the daggone belt probably, you missed the daggone taser. That's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is
these are my things that affect quality of life.
My homegirl's in East LA right now. She just messaged me. She said it's a damn war zone right now that the Rams won. I guess it's just gunshots everywhere.
Wow.
The message just
Black on black crime, white on white crime, Asian on Asian crime, Spanish on Spanish crime. Let's stop playing. Black on black crime is a myth. There's black on black, white on white, Asian on
crime is based on demographics, guys.
You gotta explain what you mean by that. I mean, yes, blacks, it does happen. White on white, it does happen.
In their own community.
Right, but no. But is it as magnified? Is it a pandemic?
No.
In a sense, you gotta explain that, because we talked about that before when we started talking about the number of people convicted on a yearly basis.
Right. Whites,
so
blacks are killing blacks, Chinese. It's all demographic. Crime is to your nation of where you're at.
Yes.
See, like Liz said, crime is crime.
Right.
Like that just happens.
Mm-hmm.
But there was a question that he had that
Tatum?
No, not Tatum. The guy who was being like a kind of a he asked a good question here.
It's not
pretty much he was saying, what's more important to you, police brutality or black on black or crime on crime, criminals?
Crime is crime, man.
Right. No, but what's more important? Like what is more of your concern? Police brutality, officer on civilian, or unjustified use of force from an officer to a civilian, or just criminals?
I'm concerned about Chinese on Chinese crime. How about that? I'm concerned about that. This guy, he's off his rockers.
Yeah, because I look at it like this. Go ahead, sir.
Sarge, no, and Shane, you guys can answer this too. Sarge, when we look at, if we're talking about excessive force, right, because we're on the subject now, in the scope of policing, would you say that you think that that's a major issue, or do you think that if the police department as a whole is one slice of a pie, what percentage would you give police brutality in the slice of a pie as an issue? If we were a corporation trying to fix that problem,
it is a tiny sliver of that pie. However, because of social media, because everybody has a camera, because all of that, it is a huge portion of our job, but it is a tiny sliver of that pie that needs to be dealt with accordingly to make my job easier.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Go ahead, brother.
Yeah, Joe said, one of you guys said it, I think the media is really hyping things up because you can't deny data. If the data is showing the numbers, I think Stan had gave us some data points earlier. Data is data. You can't skew the numbers or make it look people outside looking in what's going on. And like Sarge said, it is a very small percentage. But what it is that it's been hyped up and internalized by the media. All you see is cops doing this, cops doing that. We're doing this and that. We've seen an uptick. It looks like it's an uptick, but based on the data, if you do some research, I'm looking at some numbers now. I'm like, okay, that is right. It's not as bad as it should be.
Right. No, that's correct, man. It is a tiny portion, but it's magnified because of the cameras, and we got body cams, and I'm okay with that because that actually made my job easier. The use of force went way down. The complaints went way down. But again, I watch these videos every day of cops doing ignorant stuff that they should know better on, based not only on the law and their policy, but common sense. I mean, who the hell tases a 65-year-old guy in a wheelchair? And by the way, that cop did get fired, by the way.
And I think
Yeah,
like,
I seen the chief. He came out and said that.
Yeah, you did.
cases like that, there should be more than someone just being fired, because that's under any objective standard. Is it reasonable to tase somebody in a wheelchair? I struggle with that.
He was in fear. Hold over him. That's what it was. In fear of his life. It's crazy, man. It's crazy.
But what happens, and this is what's, I guess it's life, right? You do 99 good things, and people remember you for the one bad thing.
One fuck up, man.
And that is so true.
That's true.
Just like I said, guys, I look at data because I'm finishing up a graduate program right now, so I look at and you guys know this. I just go, man, these numbers are so low, and I agree with someone to just put, yeah, they're low, but not to the people that it affects. I'll agree with that. If my son was shot, you know, and it was wrong, I'm not trying to hear nothing. So I get that.
Right.
You know, I'm not minimizing that, but I go, man. Go ahead, young lady.
Can I say, okay, so then if we saying police brutality is not as higher number, can we also say then the so-called black on black crime
It's not
is in comparison to police brutality, because was it 4,000?
to their to their community. Right, people need to understand that when you start talking about numbers. If you look at bad policing, the number of officers that had these unjustified and they've been held accountable, that's a very small percent of the total population of officers. How many times officers go out on calls? There's roughly about 100,000, over 100,000 and something calls for service every day, yep. Right? So if it was, you hear all the time, it happens every day. It don't happen as much as people think. I'm in the business of finding bad police. Sometimes it gets hard, regardless of when I'm looking. I think said, man, where you find it? It requires a lot of research. So it's not happening. If it was happening every day, it would be a lot easier. I'd be able to post instead of 3 videos, I'd be able to post 5. So it's not as often as people think. But on the flip side of that, because I come from 2 communities, right? That subculture, that negative subculture that haunts that community is way magnified. The black community. I just hear somebody in the comments, well, black people need to stop killing each other. They need to control their own community. Since when, right? Since when did the poor neighborhoods become just the black community?
Right.
If you look at the numbers in those neighborhoods, it's only 2 million. It's over 44 million blacks, according to the census. So you know it's even more than that. But if you look at, and you know, the crime analysis, the data map, when we start looking at robbery rates and you start putting up the red dots, for the people who are not familiar with it, it's just like when you see in SWAT or one of the TV shows where they put up the map and they highlight where robberies take place. If you look at, right, to where all these incidents, these robberies, black ones, they're all in poor communities.
Absolutely.
They're all in poor communities.
Every
Not to say
time.
they don't happen outside, but the majority of those incidents are in poor communities.
Yes, sir.
And we need to look at how do we address those communities.
True.
Stop labeling those poor communities as a black problem. It's a poor problem. It's not a black problem because black people are not, we just don't live in poor communities. Like, that's a very small percent of our community. That's like me saying, I'm gonna put trailer parks on white people and just talk about meth because that's their drug of choice in those poor communities. That's unfair. It doesn't work that way.
Trailer park is going to be in a community of $500,000 houses. Okay, they're not in their own little area segregated. They're hidden. Trust me, I know because I live in that community where across the street is a trailer park, but nobody's gonna say nothing about that. But I do want to address Real Craig Long. What's my chances of being a victim from an officer compared to being in a black community with high crime? Can I say something real quick before y'all go in?
No.
I think his chances are high if he's from an officer. If he's an officer, if he's a black guy in a black community, you would get
a poor black community.
A poor black community.
Poor black, you got wealthy, you got medium class.
You're gonna get
because what you guys say, right? That a lot of these incidents, right, that make national news, they're in poor communities.
Oh yeah.
The majority of them are in poor communities, right?
Suburbs.
Right. And in a wealthy upper class community, you don't see it as much, right?
No.
So when we start talking about who we are in fear of more, it all depends on your geographics of where you live at. In a poor community where I grew up in the projects, I was a victim of excessive policing, right? once I got on my feet and got out, I didn't have those problems because the officer in the community that I live at now, and since I left, it's a different style, it's a different mentality. So you don't get that excessive aggressive in upper class communities.
But can you say, as a Black person driving through a white neighborhood, you would get stopped more so too, because you're driving through an area that's not, isn't that racial profiling?
I will disagree that a Black person, my experience gets. I live in a city that's only 4% Black. So when we see each other, we wave. I mean, you know, there are $1 million homes and stuff where I'm at. If that was the case, I'd be getting stopped by the police all the time. I'm one of the few brothers that are here. So I think that it's not solely, and I've had discussions with people when they say, well, you know, police are just stopping Black people. I don't think it's solely just being Black. I think that there are other things. I mean, probably being in a high crime neighborhood, being in a poor neighborhood, because hey, I mess around sometimes, fellas, no cap. Sometimes I drive and I said, man, I don't change the tags on my car and stuff. And I said, man, let me just see if I get stopped by the police. I don't get stopped. I haven't been stopped by the police in about 5 years, and I got a pass because I was doing like 105 in CHP stop, and they gave me a pass. But I'm just saying, I live somewhere where there's very, very few, you know, Black folks, and the police, I see them all the time. They don't mess with me.
But I think it's not that. I think it's just realizing those small infractors and making it bigger than what it is. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, you could, Marie. No, I have to agree with that. I've been stopped more in poor communities than in the area right now. I mean, I will get pulled over now. Man, it's been a minute. It has been a while since I got stopped where I live.
Right. So because
matter of fact, I had an opportunity to go to PD Alpharetta, and I was scared to go because crime was so long. Like, I'm gonna lose my skill set. Let me stay down where I'm at. I'm gonna go to sleep. It's gonna be boring. These guys are just, you know, just having donuts and getting fat. I said, no, I'm not going over there. I'm gonna stay where I'm at. So it all depends the area that you're in.
Right. And for Mitch, you got don't have a misunderstanding about the stop and frisk. The stop and frisk, right? Yes, Blacks was targeted. They had a whole study on stop and frisk. But keep in mind, it was in the poor Black community. And because of New York, the population is so much greater, you're going to have more of anything in that particular population. So stop and frisk was affected Blacks way more than any other race. And the study showed that it was totally disproportionate.
It was.
And it was not just because of race, right? It was number. It was number generated. They were being pushed to stop and write those tickets. It was being pushed. And my boy who's on the NYPD, he was forced behind getting rid of the using the police department as a money generating machine.
Joe, let me tell you, I used to live on 161st Street in Grand Concourse in the Bronx by the Yankee Stadium. I was getting stopped and frisked all day long. But when our family moved, got a little money, and we moved over to right by the Bronx Zoo, the nice area, that went down. Only when we moved to the hood, when we live in Grand Concourse, forget about it. But when we moved to the Upper West Side, that went away.
Right, because you move into a community that the tax base is higher. The elected officials are more involved in those communities. You know, they normally, like, I've had a detail that I signed up overtime for, and I could not. I said this would be the last time I sign up for this detail. It was in a rich community where the people, they had their senators, their council people in their contacts.
He was born.
They take rent. They'll call in a minute. The chief and you don't see that in the Black community. Most people, and I give lectures in the Black community. Most people don't even know who their city councilman is. They don't even know their elected officials. Like, so I've seen it firsthand, the difference in how the individuals are treated because of the nature of how they present themselves. Of, yes, I know people. I can pick up a phone and I can call captain. I can call my councilman. I can call, like, they have they have a whole different approach when they're dealing with issues in their community.
Greg asked a question, and I wanted to like maybe make a point about it. Why do police patrol those communities?
I can answer that.
Wait, is it okay? So those communities, right? And you're gonna answer it, but is it because it's easier to control a population in one area with the poor community versus? Okay,
No.
go ahead. I'm just asking.
Go ahead, Sarge.
I'm just asking.
So we get crime stats. Every big department has, or even medium-sized department, maybe some small ones have a crime statistician attached to their district who does the crime stats, and they come out every week, every day really, but every week they meet with the commander. They put out the crime stats. This is where the crime is happening. This is where I want to deploy our resources for this week, and it's usually, and not always, but usually 90% of the time, the poor communities. And that's where we deploy, and that's why we patrol poor communities more than rich communities.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Very simple.
That's real. Like people ask me all the time, how many whites have you arrested? Like when they came into the hood to buy drugs, yeah, I arrested, but I arrested more blacks because I police a poor black community.
Right.
Yeah.
Right? It doesn't represent the whole.
Well, depends on where I worked. If I worked in a predominantly white area, then I arrested more white people. But like Sarge says, we have our crime analysis, and when we do our prop projects or anything like that, it's data driven. So the area that I work, guys, I don't know if it might have been maybe about 5 square miles, but in 5 square miles we have 800 gang members, and so sometimes we put 5 cars. So we have 5 patrol cars. So I know to that community, they're like, man, there's cops everywhere. And obviously more referees getting more penalties and fouls, right? So, but there's a reason, because we were having so many shootings, and the shootings were happening like every single day. So I know that the perception is, man, RPD is over policing this neighborhood, but we're just trying to get a hold on the activity, because it was just getting so out of control in the neighborhood.
Hey, Joe, I got to go, though, brother. I'm sorry.
All right. Thanks, Sarge. I appreciate
Good
you.
to see you guys. Take care.
Tatum has a question, right?
Yeah. This is
I want to answer
no.
first,
I'm
and
just
then
saying,
y'all
it's
gonna
a good question. We've been on for a while. We're gonna wrap it up.
Let's go. I can't get nothing in.
Let's address Tatum's question. This is a really good question.
He said, does anyone on the live live in a black community? I do not. I live in a predominantly mixed community, and I purposely do that because I grew up in a black community, and I wanted my kids to experience culturally, because we're from New York, and we have that cultural diversity. But being in Georgia, we really don't. So I made it a point to live somewhere where there's a mixture of black, whites, Asians, everybody, because when you deal with real life, you're gonna go out and deal with everybody. So I don't live in an all black community. Right. I mix with everybody. Right. Would I live in a black community? Yes, I have no problem. I come from that.
Right. Right. And I lived in a mixed community. My brother-in-law lives in a predominantly black community, and it's working class, upper class, Lawrenceville, right? You see, Shane, Lawrenceville. It's a really upper class, working class community, and they don't have the issues like a lot of the poor communities. So when we start looking at this problem, we cannot negate the fact that it's a poverty issue. Yeah, it's a poverty. The problem that I have is people look at the poor community and they just say blacks, right? And that's just a subculture of our entire big ass population. It's not the entire black community.
It's not. Listen, Joe, I'm in Johns Creek now, and these homes are $1 million, $2 million, and there's nothing over here. No crime. Cops saying hello to you. What's up, guys? There's nothing happening. So it's just based on the demographic. In a poor area, you're going to get more crime. Here, there's nothing, man. It's just like killing, nothing happening. So
Said your turn. Said like, nah, I live in a white community.
Said, man, it's like 4%. But I think I don't even really think about it. I live based on where it's my economic level. Right. So I think if I made a lot less money, I would probably live in a different community. You know, I'm blessed to do very, very well for myself. So I live in a really nice community. I don't go, hey, I want to live here because there ain't no black folks or whatever. You know, I didn't think about any of that. I said, damn, you know what, that house is really nice and I want it.
Right.
And it just happens to be a white community.
You need to come to Atlanta. You'll be around a whole bunch of rich black folks out here. That's all that is. It's just where you're at, you know.
It's funny. I was thinking about moving to Lawrenceville, man.
Really?
Yeah, you get the black people.
Are you serious?
I'm serious because I was thinking about, obviously, you know, California politics is kind of rough with us out here. So yeah, I have been contemplating moving to Georgia because my family's from South Carolina and out areas. So Lawrenceville, my uncle's out in that area. So he was like, hey, look at Lawrenceville. I think it'd be kind of to your liking. But now I'm kind of looking at more Arizona or maybe back to Texas.
Okay.
Are you gonna go team up with Brandon, Arizona?
Oh Lord.
I don't know. I don't know. I can't afford a house on B. Tatum Street, bro.
No, but Lawrenceville, yeah, it's a really good. If it wasn't for my kids giving me so much resistance because they want to finish out school, I would have moved to Lawrenceville. It's a beautiful community, upper class to wealthy community, predominantly black community, and they're doing well. They don't have those issues. And a lot of people, you got to understand, I'm telling you, it's really a poverty issue. If you do a data sheet, the crime analysis as we've seen it in the police department, and you look at where these incidents happen at, you're going to see the majority of those incidents is in the most poorest communities. Yeah. And you take away the poverty, you control that poverty, you control this whole notion of black on black, the violence and everybody. You take a huge chunk out of crime, period. Because like me and Sid was saying, if you look at crime statistics, we really don't even have a crime problem. Remember we was looking at that, Sid, and we was like looking at the amount of crime we really had compared to our population. We really don't have a crime problem. We have a
poor problem.
Yeah, we have a poor problem.
And that's when it comes down to survival of the fittest. Unfortunately.
Yeah.
I wanted to Greg, I don't care. He said what happened to that African dashiki black love. That sounds so dumb and ignorant.
He said one thing, I thought he was kind of turning it around.
Turn it around.
Because he asked a good question.
I'm black love.
And then he goes back with that.
We live in the United States of America. It's a melting pot and we gotta get along with everybody. Okay, so how about that?
So he's not a threat to overall black. No! To the poor blacks, yes. Yeah. To the poor blacks, yes. You got
brutality is big.
Yes. Look at those communities. Look at where these incidents happen at. It's happening in these poor communities, poor black communities,
fatherless,
which only represents a small portion of the entire black race.
Right.
We're popping.
We're actually doing really well.
I have to say too, a lot of those areas, fatherless, some children. Or grandma or the aunties watching the kids. I mean,
only in Atlanta. Come on, B. Come on.
What do you say?
So B saying only in Atlanta where you have a good black neighborhood.
There's 40 million people in Atlanta.
Like only in Atlanta. Come on. Sag Harbor, Long Island is a total predominantly black community, right? They don't have those problems there, right? It's wealthy people out there. So you got, but you got to think about it though. It's only 44 million blacks, right? Compared to 75. So when we start spreading out, right, we're going to have smaller communities within those communities. Right. It's not going to be as big as a white because the white population is almost doubled. So you got to really look at the overall numbers and said you're pretty good with that.
There's not a white Chicago. There is a Chicago. Chicago City, we talking. Black Chicago's like 4 blocks of the bad crime that's going on.
I thank y'all, man. This was good said. I'm about to put my uniform on and do the funeral, stand there. I'm gonna show you love to the Niners. I was actually rooting for your Niners, bro. I'm a Giants fan, and when my Giants is not in, I go for the Niners, for real.
It didn't get blown up. They hung everybody. I love it. Everybody was quiet until 30 seconds left in the game, and then they decided to start getting all on me because they was all like this.
I've been a Niners fan all the way back to Rice and Montana days.
Oh,
Those were the guys. Like,
hey,
those were my guys.
I got you beat. I was a Niners fan when they had O.J. Simpson.
Oh, damn, you do got me. Oh, but you're a lot older than me though.
Deuce. I don't know about a lot. Oh my. Hey, that's all right. Hey, Shane, he called me older because I look younger than him.
Oh man, it's time.
Hey, I got one question for you guys. The chat, Mitch has this to me before. He believes that officers should live in the communities they patrol.
Who's this?
Mitch has brought this up to me, and I saw someone put that in the chat as well. Personally, I would not live in the community where I patrol just because I think that it could be problematic.
Yeah.
I think most people are okay, but I think it depends on what kind of cop you are. So I know what cop I was, and I went after the somebodies. And most people may be cool, but I'm not trying to have my family subjected to someone, hey man, there's the guy that arrested us. Let's get him, and mess up his house or whatnot. So
you know what? I'm and I always said this when I was a cop on the street. I used to say, nah, they shouldn't be from those communities. And then as I got older, as a cop, policing the community, I was like, you could see the benefit in being from the community, but that was before I had children, right? Once I got children, I said, I can't live in this community. And the reason why is because the resources are not there. I don't want my children going to the same school that I went to. That's why I moved into a neighborhood where on a scale of 1 to 10, it's a 9. The school that I went to was a 2. And I look back now, it's still a 2. They're not bringing no resources to that education department. So yes, we should somehow or another be from those communities, but at the same time, it should be to where the whole notion to change that narrative, to change that community, we got to invest in that community. You can't have officers there with their families going to the local school that's a 2 and expect them to have a good education. That's not going to happen. Right. Now, I agreed before I had my family that I wouldn't mind going and living in a community, policing community that I was from, especially the poor Black community. I didn't have no problem. But do I want to have now the lack of resources that I had growing up? Now my kid's gonna have to follow that same path. No, I didn't. I never was. You know what was crazy? I've seen a lot of people that I arrested off duty. I never, because I always treated people fair. I always treat people with respect. And I'm a talker. I talk to people on the way to jail through the whole process. Yo, this is what it is. This is what you did. This. You got to answer to that. You're going one way or another. Why make this a rough road? Let's do this the right way. And I've seen people come to me. I've never had a bad encounter after seeing somebody on the street that I had dealt with.
Same here.
And say, yo, you locked me up, you this. I never had those problems. I really never had. I was in a mall one time and I locked this kid up, and he got like 4 years. He had a gun, a legal gun on him. He got like 4 years. And he seen me. He was like, yo, he came up and gave me a dap. He gave me a hug. He says, yo, I was on a road to destruction. He said, you sat me down for 4 years. I had to really think about what I was doing. He said, yo, you probably saved my life, man. He said, I just wanted to say, yo, thanks, man. Like, I really appreciate that,
but
man.
Oh, that's good policing. I had being told me, you know what, you showed me so much respect, and I really needed that, because my attitude is that I'm catching you on your worst day. I'm going to catch you.
Right.
It doesn't mean you're a bad person. You just got in a bad situation. And
Right.
But I'm still going to give you that respect, no matter what's going on. I'm going to respect you because you're a man. Just like I'm a man. You put your pants on the same way. I'm going to give you that respect. And I think when they come out later on, they look back and say, wait a second. Wow, he really did me right. I never had a problem. But as you said, I would not have kids. I couldn't live the type of work I was doing on the force. I couldn't live in the community because it would put my family in jeopardy. So I couldn't do that. I had to go outside the area.
Yeah. What about you, Seth? Did you come in contact with anybody you arrested? And,
oh yeah.
And did it turn out like rough or
no? Matter of fact, the guy shook my hand, and his wife came and hugged me because I had to take him to jail for some DV stuff, and he just you know, he saw me, I saw him, I was sitting in my car. I was waiting for my ex at the time to go to the movie. So I immediately got out of the car and he walks over to me and, you know, I had that eye contact and he reaches his hand out and he says, look, you caught me on a bad day.
Right, right.
And, you know, I hated for, you know, this to happen. He says, but I'm going to tell you this. If I was to get arrested, I'm glad it was by an officer such as yourself because you were extremely professional.
Right.
Wife comes up and she runs up and just gives me a big hug and she's like, listen, you the way you explained everything to us, you know, you weren't a jerk to him, even though you had to take him to jail. She goes, you know, it was just phenomenal. We decided to, you know, go, you know, seek some help and some therapy and things like that. So it made me feel good. And another time I used to go talk to these kids at this county school. They're all on probation and stuff, gangsters and all that. And I would just go like once a week. I think I told you, Joe, as part of my community stuff giving away. And I just hang out with these kids every single week. One day I'm actually in Toys R Us with my kids mall. And I'm like, oof. Because I'm like, you know, he's like a real gangster, right?
Right.
You know, he sees me and we give each other that look. And he looks away and I look. And so he recognizes me and it's that like, okay, now what? And he walks up to me and gives me dap and he's like upset, how's it going? Blah, blah, a little short talk. And he went on his way. So I do think I would say in most instances, like you were talking about, the treatment of people goes a long way. But like Shane, like the stuff that some of the people that I was involved with and out there dealing with, there's just no way I would want to be in the same community. Because I said, we know that policing is not equal. Cops are not equal. You got the cops that just want to go to their radio calls and go home. And then you got the cops that are like, you know, you got the cops that are looking at lunch. And then you got, you know, I don't know if you guys use the same phrasers, hunters and gatherers.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And so I was the one, I'm going to drive over here because I know all the gangsters is here, man. As soon as I get out of the car, pull up, people are bouncing, people are throwing guns and all that stuff. So I was dealing with guys who were actually out there shooting people, you know, so I wouldn't be comfortable with family in the same neighborhood of guys that I was constantly having interaction with and sending to jail who are out folks. So.
You know what said you and Joe just provided a key factor that goes to Marie's point, is that you provided a level of dignity. That's what's happening with our new officers today. As you see on the force, your guys had people shake your hands, hug you, say, hey, you caught me at a bad time, but you gave me the dignity and respect. I think that's missing. So you have it said, I could tell, so does Joe. And I don't think what I'm seeing sometimes is some officers is not providing that level of dignity, and it makes us all kind of look. I think we need more of that as a police force.
I think officers don't realize that you're a social worker, a psychologist, a damn friend, a mama, a dad. Like, you are all these things in that profession. And I think they forget that and maybe just see it as a job instead of as a duty to serve someone. And just like a doctor, you want to be caring and empathetic. It's the same with a law enforcement officer. You're not just there to put down law or, arrest criminals. It really is one of those things. It's like, I'm a person, speak to me as such. Respect is earned just like it's given. You know what I'm saying? So I think if they start going back to that understanding, I would hope that it would be better. And it's not, you're fighting with this ego. This is my job and I'm a law enforcement officer, instead of seeing the person as, this could be my brother, this could be my sister. You know what I'm saying? I couldn't be a cop because I'm emotional. I'm a crybaby, as you can see. I'm a very emotional person. I'm a Cancer. So, but I'm reasonable and I like to have conversations and I like to understand people's point of views. So I think if an officer, use that and say, okay, when I'm out this uniform, and I always say a Black officer, you're a Black man at the end of the day. In uniform and out of uniform, you're still a Black man. So when you approach somebody, you should understand and you should have empathy for that person, because even if you take off the uniform, you can't never take off your skin color. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know. I just think if it was more humanly people and, love.
You know, that's probably just
get along.
being human. That's probably the most hardest thing for all of us. And I've learned this at an early age in my career. I went to work, and this is crazy, right? I was so thankful for this experience. I went to work off duty at the ER. You know, you hang around the ER because the ER was in the hood, and people come in with stabbings, shootings. It was a crazy ER. So this guy came in, right? He got stabbed, and I was in the front lobby, and I just kept hearing this guy scream in the back, and he was cursing, he was yelling. And I saw him in the back, and the doctor was giving him stitches. He got slashed up, and he was just cursing at the doctor. So I was like, "Yo, doc, why don't you just chill with the pain meds? Let him feel it." Right? Because, you know, you here trying to help this guy out, and he's just being such a jerk. Like, he's really being a jerk to the doctor. And I told him, dude, he's trying to put you back together. And he's like, but this shit hurts. I was like, won't you chill out? Right. This dude is really trying to put you back together, right? Mm-hmm. So I was like, you know, I talked to the doctor, I had a little sidebar. I was like, yo, don't give him no pain meds. So I'm back up. And he was like, with my profession, I just see a body in need of repair. I don't care about who's in that body. I don't care their personal beliefs. I don't care their color. I just see a human anatomy that is in need of repair. That's going out. You know, we have a people regard us as a high profession, and this is why, right? You guys, right? Y'all should have that same profession, that same respect. But what I see with officers, they get caught up in the emotional effects of what somebody say, what somebody pig, this and that. Because I've been called everything in the world, and that doesn't bother me. I go home at the end of the night. None of these patients say change my personality or who I am. And most doctors in they feel the same way. We don't care about the individual inside that body. We just care about that body. And that really had me thinking, like, wow, that, like, for a doctor to be able to shrug that off, and, you know, the dude was just disrespectful, just out there, like, he was screaming and yelling. He was just, I was like, you know, I could probably charge him with disorderly conduct in a hospital. Right? It was like, because it wasn't even at me, he was pissing me off, because I couldn't understand the concept of he's helping you. Like, he's repairing you, and you being such an asshole to the doctor. And he was like, remove your emotions.
As office,
if you remove your emotions out the way, you'll live a much healthier and safe. It's a job. Right. You chose to police a community. It didn't say it stopped just for nice people, people who are respectful, people who are disrespectful, you will come in contact with. Hey, it's not going to change your lifestyle. Just do what you do within the confines of what you're supposed to do and move on. Mm-hmm. You know, that really had a huge impact, because most officers, you start calling names. Well, why you stop me? You ain't got. They start putting pennies on your tie and stuff. You know the routine. I was to stop me for one ticket. Now you want to be an asshole. I'm going to find up your windshield, up your tire, up. You go through the whole nine. That you're emotionally responding to because somebody said something. Right. And that was one of the best things, like having that conversation, because it gave me a whole different outlook. Why can't we be looked at as law enforcement as a high profession? You know why? Because of the incidents that we see where it's wrong, it's somebody's responding emotionally. They're responding at someone saying, peg, this, that. How many times you've heard, I'm going to kill your family, I'm going to kill your kids, I'm going to kill your wife, I'm going to rape this, and then you like, what? You just got, I wish we did have that reputation at being professionals like that. And the community, it seems like the further we go, right, it's getting worse. I think policing now is at an all-time low. I've never seen it this low ever.
And I wanted to say,
have y'all guys seen it any low bad as this? I just wanted to ask this to you.
The recruiting process, like said he got a lot of training over in his areas, tons of training. I think we got to do better in our recruiting process, more due diligence in our background. Really find out what's in a person's head, because I'm seeing a lot of young people who seem to be emotional. And I grew up in a time where you got to have thick skin, man. This is a business, a professional. They're going to call you anything in the book. You still got to treat them as respect, and you still got to be professional how you handle your business. And that's just it. I look at it, you know.
Synergy's strength said he didn't believe with me because criminals aren't teddy bears. Officers, I believe, and tell me if I'm right or wrong, you guys come in contact with more non-criminals on a day-to-day basis than criminals.
It all depends on your assignment.
Well, on your assignment too, but not everybody you come in contact with. I walk by a cop and I'm not a criminal.
Right.
So to say that no criminals are not treated with like a teddy bear, whatever he said, I think that's wrong because you do deal a lot with just people in general. Even if you go into a high crime area, there's people who live there who are not criminals. They just happen to be in that poor community.
100%.
And they're not.
I think you have to change, because when you work certain areas, I noticed that my mentality probably changed a little bit, my demeanor. When you're working, you'll hear people who work, like the people that work the jails and stuff like that. I've talked to people that go, man, I don't even say bad words and stuff. And I've gotten around these people. And because it changes you, because part of what happens is you have to be able to relate to the people that you work with, right? In the communities. If you're dealing with a bunch of gangsters and all that, sir and ma'am does not work.
Right.
It doesn't.
You're 100% right.
You got to learn the lingo. If you work in a Hispanic neighborhood and all that, you got to know some of the things, you know, the words that you say, the words you can't say and all that. And you can't come in there, sir, I need you to, can I get you to sit down and be like, because they don't respond to that. I'm sorry, Maria, but man, you know what, bro, you don't have to sit your ass down.
Straight up.
No, but then after a while, it's still that hardness, but you still have a level of respect where you can have a conversation, a decent conversation with the person. You never let your guard down, but I don't think you still go into work every day, and certain people you just be like, okay, I know how he is, but you can still have a conversation. I think hard people still have a sense of human decency inside where they can have a conversation.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So I don't think, we see people as criminals, period. They're still a human being at the end of the day. And I think they feel like if you treat me like a criminal, I'm going to act like a criminal. But I think
I'll say this. I guess
I'll
say it all depends on what they've done.
Oh yeah, I mean, if you are
no,
you guys,
right.
And I'm sure you guys know that, because to me, there's certain things that you do you just can never come back from.
Right.
Why? Well, I don't understand why they're saying nice criminal. Like, do you know a nice criminal?
Did I say that? Retard.
Nobody.
Criminals. No. There's no.
I know. Like, did I say that?
We was about to shut it down. Like we supposed to all have like
could there be?
I'll shut down.
White collar. Like bank fraud or PP, something like that, maybe?
Yes, they're nice. That's still a crime. But people don't see that as crimes. They just see as violent crimes as crime. You only see violent crime coming from the Black community, unfortunately.
Yeah.
The poor community.
Stop
saying Black community.
When I say Black community, I mean poor Black community.
Okay, say the poor community.
The inner city.
Because that represents a very small percent
My
of
bad.
the
I'm
entire
sorry. I know what I mean, and
community.
I know some people aren't going to just take it and
Yeah.
Okay.
It said, Mitch said that's your boy who acts.
Oh, he's trolling me right now.
He said, yo, thanks, man. I appreciate it. We're going to link up. We'll do it again next Sunday. Appreciate you guys coming on.
Thanks for having me, guys.
All right. Hey, Shane. Nice chatting.
Yo, like I always tell you guys, the audience out there, police officers are being held accountable more and more now than we've ever seen. You got more officers getting suspended, getting terminated, getting charged, getting convicted. So we are making some way in this fight against bad policing. We really are. We just gotta keep having these conversations. We gotta keep the pressure on. We definitely have to keep the pressure on. So with that said, look, stand up, fight. Understand that. I totally get if you're feeling like you're being disrespected and your rights being violated, but understand how to fight. Live to fight another day. Your fight is in that courtroom. Don't push the envelope so far that the officer is in fear of his life and you don't get to go home. And now we're on IG talking about you being killed. Two witnesses, the videos, take it to a courtroom. Please be safe and see you guys next Sunday.